"Neglect and abuse," Lindsay said, not without satisfaction. "I think we can safely say that's what happened." David raised an eyebrow, a truly impressive feat given that the man had naturally reticent eyebrows. They were standing in the kitchen, where Lindsay had just finished recounting everything the obedience trainer had said. She had included the useful parts, omitted the overturned water bowl, and reduced the incident with the rubber frogs to what she called a minor merchandising disagreement. Daphne sat between them, staring at the pouch of training treats in Lindsay's hand. Fred, their other dog, sat beside Daphne, staring at exactly the same thing. Fred was 2 years old and possessed enough energy to power several nearby homes. He and Daphne encouraged each other in the way a lit match encouraged gasoline. If one dog began barking, the other joined in before determining why. If one ran through the house, the other assumed there was both a race and a prize. David looked from one dog to the other. "Neglect. Yes, which one?" "Daphne." Fred sprang onto his hind legs and planted both front paws against the refrigerator. "Down," Lindsay said. Fred dropped to the floor. Daphne interpreted the command as an invitation to leap onto David. "Down." Daphne dropped. Fred jumped up again. David pointed at him. "What's his excuse?" "He's young." "So is Daphne." Her previous owners didn't take proper care of her. If she had gone to the vet, been groomed, fed properly, or even walked once in a while, she wouldn't become hysterical every time she saw something new. Fred barked at the refrigerator. Daphne joined him. David waited for the noise to subside. Was Fred neglected? No. Abused? Of course not. Then why is he barking at the refrigerator? He learned it from Daphne. Fred had lived with them first, but David appeared to understand that mentioning this would be unhelpful. Lindsay folded her arms. The point is that her behavior makes sense. She gets excited because everything is still new to her. David looked around the familiar kitchen. Daphne barked at the refrigerator again. That refrigerator has been here longer than she has. Maybe she heard the ice maker. The ice maker emptied with a crash. Both dogs exploded. Fred launched himself sideways, struck a cabinet, and recovered without any visible loss of enthusiasm. Daphne raced around the kitchen island. Fred joined her, and within seconds they had converted the room into a circular track. "Stop running!" Lindsay shouted. They ran faster. "Sit!" Daphne sat. Fred completed another lap, discovered that Daphne had stopped, and collided with her. Lindsay held up a treat. Both dogs sat so abruptly that their back ends struck the floor. David nodded. "Extortion. It's positive reinforcement. They created a crisis and are now demanding payment to end it." They sat. After turning the kitchen into a racetrack, they still sat. David considered this. "I'm going to try that with the bank." Lindsay gave him the look that only a redhead with professionally assisted color could give. Before she could respond, the front door opened. "I'm home," Alora called. Both dogs vanished. A moment later came the sound of a backpack hitting the floor, followed by Alora laughing and ordering them to get down while doing absolutely nothing to make them get down. Lindsay walked into the entryway. Alora was pressed against the door with Fred's paws on her shoulders and Daphne attempting to climb between them. "There are my babies," Alora said. "Did you miss me?" "Don't encourage them." "I'm not." "You're hugging both of them." "They missed me." "You left this morning." "That was 7 hours ago," which isn't long enough to justify a full-contact reunion. Fred dropped to the floor, sprinted into the living room, and returned with a shoe. Daphne chased him, although she had no apparent interest in the shoe until Fred had it. "Fred," Lindsay said, "drop it." Fred ran behind the couch. Daphne followed. Alora picked up her backpack. It's nice to feel wanted. David appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Your mother believes Daphne is excitable because she was neglected." Alora watched both dogs race past with one shoe between them. "What happened to Fred?" "Apparently Daphne happened to Fred," David said. "She's a bad influence," Lindsay said. Fred released the shoe. Daphne grabbed it and ran into the kitchen. "They're both bad influences," Alora said. It took Lindsay 3 minutes and 2 treats to recover the shoe. By then, she was forced to admit that a system might be necessary. 10 minutes later, 2 glass jars stood on the counter. Each contained 10 training treats. One jar was labeled Daphne, the other was labeled Fred. 20 tokens, David said. They are not tokens. They're limited units exchanged for desired behavior. They're treats. Currency can be edible. Alora picked up Fred's jar. Why 10 each? Your father calculated it from their regular food allowance. 10 leaves enough room for whatever else they manage to steal during the day, David said. They don't steal that much, Lindsay said. All three of them looked toward the living room. Fred and Daphne stood on opposite sides of Alora's shoe, pulling in opposite directions. Alora retrieved it and placed it on top of the bookcase. 10 might not be enough. The rules are simple, Lindsay said. They receive a treat only when they obey a command or make a calm choice. What counts as a calm choice? Alora asked. Not doing that. Fred jumped against the bookcase. Daphne barked encouragement. No treats for barking, Lindsay continued. No treats for jumping, and no treats for being cute immediately after doing something terrible. Alora looked at her mother. That last rule is mostly for you. It applies to everyone. Daphne sat at Lindsay's feet and gazed up at her with large, innocent eyes. Lindsay reached toward the jar. Mom. She pulled her hand back. I was only checking the lid. The following morning, Lindsay announced that the dogs needed a day off. From what? David asked. Training. They were drinking coffee on the back patio. Fred was circling the table with a tennis ball in his mouth. Daphne was digging beneath the fence. They've been training for less than a day, David said. That's not the point. They need time to enjoy themselves without every minute being structured and judged. Fred dropped the tennis ball in David's lap. David threw it. Fred tore across the yard. Daphne abandoned the hole and chased him. Fred reached the ball first. Daphne tried to take it, and the two of them began a high-speed lap around the yard. Unstructured enough for you? David asked. Lindsay watched Fred narrowly miss a patio chair. Maybe slightly less unstructured. They decided to take both dogs to the outdoor market downtown. It allowed leashed dogs. The weather was mild, and walking through the crowd would give them a chance to practice calm behavior without making the day feel like another lesson. Alora came with them, carrying both token jars in a small backpack. She had also written the rules on an index card. 1. No treats for barking. 2. No treats for jumping. 3. No treats for stealing. 4. No treats for looking innocent afterward. 5. Mom cannot overrule number 4. I continue to object to the wording, Lindsay said. You continue to be the reason it's necessary, Alora replied. At the market, the dogs discovered more sources of excitement in 30 seconds than Lindsay had anticipated encountering all day. There were children, balloons, musicians, food stands, strollers, pigeons, and at least a dozen other dogs. Fred pulled left toward a sausage stand. Daphne pulled right toward a child carrying a pinwheel. Lindsay stood between them with both arms extended. This was a mistake. David took Fred's leash. Separate accounts. I can handle them. Your shoulders disagree. He led Fred several feet away. The dogs immediately tried to reunite. Fred, sit, David said. Fred pulled toward Daphne. Sit. Fred looked at the sausage stand. David waited. After several seconds, Fred sat. Yes. Alora took a treat from Fred's jar. 9, David said. On the other side of the walkway, Lindsay waited for Daphne to stop barking at the pinwheel. Daphne, sit. Daphne barked again. The child waved the pinwheel, causing it to spin. Daphne's front paws danced against the pavement. At last, she looked back at Lindsay and sat. Yes. 9 for Daphne, Alora announced. They advanced another 20 feet. A pigeon landed in front of them. Both dogs lunged. The pigeon escaped with the casual confidence of an animal that had survived dogs before. Fred and Daphne crossed in front of Lindsay and David, wrapping the 2 leashes around all 4 human legs. Stop, Lindsay said. No one could move far enough to obey. Alora stepped around them and began untangling the leashes. Do we lose tokens for this? The dogs don't, David said. Why not? They aren't the ones who failed to anticipate the pigeon. They caused it. The pigeon caused it. The dogs merely reacted to market forces. Lindsay glared at him over a leash stretched across her waist. If you turn this into an economics lesson, I will leave you tied together. Once freed, They continued through the market. Fred spent a token passing the sausage stand without jumping at anyone. Daphne spent one for ignoring a dropped piece of bread. Both earned another when a terrier barked at them, and they managed, after considerable negotiation, to keep walking. 7 each, Alora said. Are we sure this is a day off? David asked. They're having fun. Fred attempted to climb onto a bench occupied by 3 strangers. Daphne barked at a trash can. They're always having fun, David said. That may be the problem. Near the center of the market, they found a booth operated by Prince and Paws, selling handmade pet toys. Ropes, stuffed animals, and fabric-covered balls hung from a wooden frame. On the lowest shelf was a row of crinkly mice intended for cats. Both dogs stopped. Their bodies went rigid. Their ears pointed forward. The vendor picked up a mouse and made it crinkle. Fred jumped. Daphne barked. No, Lindsay and David said together. The vendor lowered the mouse. Do they want one? They want everything, Alora said. Fred lunged again. Daphne pulled toward him, apparently concerned he might reach the mouse first. Sit, David said. Fred continued pulling. Daphne, sit, Lindsay said. Daphne continued barking. The mouse crinkled again. Both dogs increased their efforts. Maybe stop doing that, Lindsay told the vendor. He hid the mouse behind his back. The dogs stared at him. Lindsay planted her feet and waited. Beside her, David did the same. Daphne whined. Fred pawed at the pavement. No one moved. Fred looked at David and sat. Yes, David said. A second later, Daphne sat too. Yes, Alora distributed the treats. 6 each. Lindsay bought 2 mice. They're technically cat toys, the vendor said. The dogs can't read, she replied. They continued through the market, each dog proudly carrying a mouse. The toys crinkled with every step, making it sound as if Lindsay and David were walking 2 bags of groceries. For several minutes, the dogs behaved beautifully. Then Fred dropped his mouse. Daphne dropped hers and grabbed Fred's. Fred grabbed the other one and ran across Lindsay's path. Daphne followed, tangling the leashes again. Why? Lindsay asked as David caught her by the elbow. They are identical. It isn't about having a mouse, Alora said. It's about having the mouse the other dog wants. David nodded. Scarcity creates value. They each have one. Perceived scarcity. No economics. They reached the far end of the market with 3 tokens remaining in each jar. An ice cream truck was parked near the curb, advertising vanilla pup cups for $1. Both dogs noticed the picture on the sign. They can't possibly know what that means, Lindsay said. Fred pulled toward the truck. Daphne joined him. They understand marketing, David replied. Alora bought 2 pup cups. Fred jumped against her left side while Daphne jumped against her right. Sit, Alora said. Neither dog sat. She held the cups against her chest and waited. Fred barked. Daphne whined. Fred circled Alora. Daphne tried to follow, and the leashes began wrapping around her legs. Separate them, Lindsay said. No, they need to figure it out. Fred stopped first. He looked at the cup, then at Alora, and sat. Yes. Daphne continued dancing until she realized Fred was no longer participating. She looked at him, looked at Alora, and sat beside him. Yes. Alora placed the cups on the ground. 2 tokens each, David said. The dogs buried their faces in the ice cream. For the first time all morning, they were completely quiet. The family found an empty picnic table. Fred finished his cup, checked Daphne's, and discovered that she had beaten him to the same idea. They exchanged a suspicious look, then began licking each other's empty cups. Eventually, Daphne lay beneath the table with 1 mouse between her paws. Fred dropped beside her and placed his head across her back. Their eyes closed almost simultaneously. Lindsay rested her elbows on the table. See, calm. Exhausted, David said. Calm. They've spent the last hour trying to dislocate our shoulders. It's progress. Alora set the jars on the table. 4 treats remained, 2 for each dog. What do we do with these? Save them, Lindsay said. We still have to get everyone into the car. At the word car, both dogs opened their eyes. Fred stood. Daphne picked up her mouse. Without being asked, they headed toward the parking lot. The family watched them go. Well, David said, that was easy. Halfway to the car, Fred noticed a pigeon. Daphne noticed Fred noticing the pigeon. Both dogs bolted. Lindsay and David grabbed the leashes at the same moment. "Sit!" Lindsay called. The dogs strained toward the pigeon. Everyone waited. The pigeon strutted between two parked cars and disappeared. Fred sat first. Daphne sat beside him. Alora took the last 4 treats from the jars. "Do they really need 2 each?" David asked. "Yes," Lindsay said. "That was an exceptional choice. We agreed there were no performance bonuses. We changed the policy. When? Just now." She gave each dog 2 treats. They climbed into the car without another incident. Daphne settled into the back seat beside Alora. Fred jumped in after her, turned 3 circles, stepped on Daphne, received a warning growl, and finally lay down with his head on Alora's lap. Within minutes, both dogs were asleep. David started the car. "So," he said, "was Daphne neglected?" "Yes." "And Fred?" Lindsay looked into the back seat. Fred was sleeping upside down, all 4 paws in the air. Daphne's head rested against his stomach. "Fred is an accomplice. That seems convenient. It explains the evidence." David pulled out of the parking space. "And what did we learn from our 20-token experiment? That they're capable of being calm, when unconscious. That consistency works. And," Lindsay glanced at the empty jars, "and treats are expensive. Opportunity costs." She turned toward the window so he wouldn't see her smile. "I liked neglect better," she said.